Peace and blessings. Welcome back to the channel once again, where we talk all things health and healing from a holistic perspective. And today will be no different. Today we're going to talk about, is mouth breathing bad for you? And I know what you're thinking. Mouth breathing? Come on, doc. I'm going to break down to you the difference between breathing through your nose and breathing through your mouth. And I think you're going to be a little bit shocked. Okay? And the reason why I say that is because the mouth and the nose are made up for two very different things. And what I mean by that is, when you look at the structure of the nose and the functions of the nose and what it's supposed to do when you breathe in air versus the primary function of the mouth, which is really to eat and drink food, okay? And then a very probably third or fourth breathing, then you start to understand the differences when you look at the structures and what happens to air when you breathe through your mouth versus breathing through your nose. You start to understand very quickly it is very different. And so one of the things that happened to me when I was traveling, I think I was in Namibia and Africa, and I was going to see this tribe, and this tribe who live far away from anything considered a city, in the middle of nowhere, in huts. And I'm trying to communicate with them. I got a translator with me who was like a former tribe member who moved to the city. And we had been running there to the village, and we ran to the village because on the way there, we were driving the SUV that I had rented, and we got to a portion in a river where we couldn't go over the river. So I reversed back out. We went over the river, got over the river by walking, and then started to walk to the village another 2 miles. And on the way to the village, we saw it was a hill, a big hill up to the right of us, and we saw like a lion up there. Okay. And when we saw the lion, I said, should we run? And they were like, don't run. Okay. So we started walking fast. And so by the time we got to the village, okay, for 2 miles, it was really a walk run. And so I get there, and when I got there, the excitement of seeing a lion and then having to walk there fast, really a jog. And the chief of the village says, he's breathing in his language. He's translating, my translator is translating this to me. He goes, he's breathing through his mouth. And he goes, so I hear him say this, and I was like, what did he say? He wants to know why you're breathing through your mouth. And I thought it was the funniest thing. I was like, because I'm tired. He was like, oh. So that was the first time I ever thought about it. And they do wrestling and stuff in this village. And so one of the things, when I was asking about the wrestling, he was like, you probably wouldn't be able to last even though you're bigger than us. And I was like, why is that? He was like, you breathe through your mouth. So that was the first time it made me think about how I breathe. And so I thought that this would be an amazing video, because I think it's important for us to consider the fact that, a lot of the things that we do them without even thinking of them, because some of the most important things that happen are happening and not a doing. And what I mean by that is, to get from point A to point B, I have to walk, I have to get up. If I want to see something behind me, I have to turn my head. I have to shift my eyeballs. If I want to, read something, I got to look down and then comprehend. If I want to say something, I have to speak. Those are doings. But there are certain things in life that are happening. And the things that are happening are the divine things. I believe that God said, hey, these things are too important for me to have you, always do them. So it's going to be a happening. It's just going to happen. Okay. And that's important, because if you had to be conscious about your breathing 24/7, you would not be able to go to sleep, because when you're asleep, you're unconscious, which means that you wouldn't breathe. And you have to breathe, because if we go 3 to 4 minutes without oxygen, our life ceases to exist. We die. Okay. Now we can go 90 days without food. We can go, 7 to 10 days without any form of water. But if we go 3 to 4 minutes without oxygen, we're in trouble. Okay, so it's really important from that standpoint, to understand how important oxygen is. Okay, because that's why we're extracting the air into our bodies, is to take the oxygen out. One of the reasons to take the oxygen out, we need it. Okay, without oxygen, we would not be able to function. Okay, and every cell in our body, every tissue in our body needs oxygen. So it's the number one nutrient in the world, because we can go, again, 90 days without food. Now, what's also important is to understand how you get that nourishment versus getting it through your nose versus getting it through your mouth. Again, the structures for the nose are actually very complicated. If you look at the structures of the nose, they are so complicated, and they're complicated not by mistake. They're complicated for a very good reason, to serve its purpose. As opposed to when you breathe through your mouth, that is designed for food. Okay, and the mouth is designed as a backup for breathing, because it's so important that if your nose got smashed, okay, and you were not able to breathe through your nose because all kind of blood was pouring out of it, or your sinuses got fully congested and you couldn't breathe through your nose, then yes, you have to breathe through your mouth at that point. But we're supposed to be breathing through our nose. And when we don't, there are unfortunate consequences that are very common, and people don't realize that they're so common. They think that they're normal, but they're not. And we're going to get into those in just a second. But the question that I always ask people when I'm talking about this is, how many times on average would you say we breathe per day? I ask people this all the time, and people will say, damn, I don't know, maybe 500 to 1,000. Sometimes people say 2,500. We breathe about 25,000 times a day. Okay? And we don't even realize it. That's how much we're breathing every day. And again, it's so important to understand that the structures in our nose and in our sinuses prepare that air for when it goes into the lung. And what I mean by that is, as the air is going into our nasal passages, not our mouth, it is either heating up the air or cooling down the air based upon the temperature on the outside. Okay? It's also humidifying the air as well, too, which is really important. And I'll explain why in just a second. But the thing that I want you to understand is, when you breathe through your nose, it's going through the proper channels. Okay? This is the best way to explain it is, our bodies are the most complicated machinery on the earth. Most of the things that we think are very complicated, like a computer, a cell phone, a computer is based upon how our brain works. The camera. The camera is based upon the human eye. They use the technology and understanding of the human eye to make a camera. So some of the most complicated things are based upon this technology that we call the human body. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because when you breathe through your nose versus your mouth, you need to understand that this body has a manufacturer's set of instructions, from the divine source. And when we violate that, we get the consequences that come with that. All right. So I'm going to break down today a little bit about some of those unfortunate consequences that we never even think about, because most of the people I know mouth breathe. After leaving Africa, and I started to notice how much I was mouth breathing, and I had probably been doing it all my life. Okay. And not only that, I started to look at other people and notice how often they mouth breathe as well, too. Okay. So I think it's hugely important. Now, when I looked up some statistics, I was actually shocked, because they say only 25% of the population breathes through their mouth. But when I'm looking out, I'm seeing far more than that. But those are the statistics. Okay. We should be breathing through our nose. That's the most important thing. And especially while we're asleep. Okay. And the reason why that's so important is because the tissues and the structure of the nose, it's a use it or lose it system. If you don't use it, you lose it. It becomes less and less effective. And I think so many people actually breathe through their mouth and are so comfortable with breathing through their mouth that they're actually uncomfortable when they have to breathe through their nose, like when they go in to do yoga, or something like that. So this is that's actually one of the practices that has helped me, along with my meditation practice, that has helped me sort of shift the process back to the manufacturer's instructions and start to breathe through my nose more. Okay, so let's talk about the difference between breathing through your nose versus breathing through your mouth, and then you'll have a better understanding of why it's so important to start working on reversing that process to breathing through your nose. The first thing, when you breathe through your nose is going to humidify the air. Okay, adding humidity means adding moisture. Why is that important? Because the red blood cells in the lungs can only extract oxygen from water. So if there's no humidity in the actual air that you're breathing, the unfortunate consequence is you're not going to extract a lot of air from it. Okay, so that's one very positive benefit. When you breathe through your nose, you get the benefit of humidifying the air. Okay, that you don't get when you mouth breathe. Number two, you pressurize the air. Okay, you got to understand that the atmospheric pressure versus the pressure inside of your lungs are very different. And for air to be able to be absorbed and go inside of the lungs and be absorbed, there has to be a shift in pressure, and that pressure has to be in a ratio in which it can do that. Okay, so one of the benefits of breathing through your nose is that you pressurize the air. Okay, number three, you filter the air. This is really important. All right, now when you look into your nose, you may not see the hairs in there, but there's hairs in there. But there's also the structure of the nose too is actually filtering the air. It's filtering the air from allergens, it's filtering the air from pollutants, it's filtering the air from pathogens. And if you get too many of any of those, what you'll notice is that the nasal structure will start to get inflamed and shut down because too much of it is coming in. As opposed to when you breathe through your mouth, it doesn't get that trigger. So guess what? Most people during the pandemic who got that pathogen, okay, most people who got it, guess what? When they got that infection, most people got it through their mouth, not their nose. Because guess what? Most people breathe through their mouth. Okay? So most of the time the infection was literally on the back of the tongue or in the back of the throat. Because people breathe through their mouth, not their nose. Okay? So again, hugely important. What's also important is when you breathe through your nose, it produces nitric oxide. Nitric oxide dilates the blood vessels in the nose, which and in the lungs as well too, to actually increase the absorption of oxygen. Okay. Again, it's really important to know and understand that our bodies are set up in a very specific way. Now, animals are still, especially wild animals. I won't even say domesticated animals are, but wild animals are still in alignment with their default settings. But we, unfortunately, the civilized, are totally in misalignment with how we're supposed to be as it pertains to nature. Okay, so hugely important. And as opposed to breathing through your nose, when you breathe through your mouth, you actually get 20% less oxygen. Okay, 20% less oxygen. Part of that is because as you're breathing through your mouth, some of that air is going into your stomach and not your lungs. Okay, and the other part is that's not what it's really set up for. Okay, so hugely important. So now that I got into that, what I want to do is give you 11 things that happen when you are a mouth breather. Okay, 11 things that happen when you are a mouth breather. When you breathe through your mouth, number one, it impacts the density of our bones. Okay, it impacts the density. That's how dense and strong the bones are. Okay, simply by mouth breathing. Number two, dry mouth. I mean, it makes sense. If you're a mouth breather and When you wake up in the morning, you'll notice that your mouth is dry, your throat is dry. It's because you're breathing through your mouth. So that's one of the telltale signs that you're probably a mouth breather, okay? And as I said before, the most important time that we should be actually breathing through our nose is when we're asleep, okay? So number 2, dry mouth. Number 3, you will eventually get crowded teeth. Do you notice that there's an epidemic of people who have crowded teeth, where their teeth are like bunching up, and a lot of kids, their teeth are bunching up, and people are having to go get Invisalign and braces and things of that nature, okay? When I was in Africa, seeing these different tribes, you want to know the interesting thing that I saw? Most of these people did not brush their teeth, but they had perfect teeth. I mean, not only were the teeth perfect in terms of like being straight, but they were white, they were together, and they were strong, okay? I asked them how often do they get like tooth decay and things of that nature, and he really didn't understand what I was talking about, okay? Because their teeth looked like they were biting down on this, like, it was like a piece of wood. Something that if most people would have bit down on, they would have probably broken the teeth. Again, goes back to number 1, impacts the density of our bones. And our bones also include teeth as well too, okay? But again, you're gonna get crowded teeth, because what's gonna happen is the more you breathe through your mouth, I'm gonna talk about this in a second, it's gonna shift the muscles in your face as well too, and cause your jaw to be narrower. And as your jaw becomes more and more narrow, that's what makes the teeth crowd, okay? So number 3, teeth crowding, okay? Number 4, gum disease, okay? Gum disease, again, you're breathing in. You're breathing in through the mouth. Guess what? You're not just breathing in air, you're breathing in the bacteria in the air as well too, okay? So gum disease. Number 5, and this makes sense, bad breath, halitosis. You're gonna get bad breath. That can cause it by being a mouth breather, okay? So halitosis. Number 6, again, ties in, tooth decay, okay? Tooth decay, all right? Because now that you got this bacteria that you're breathing in through your mouth because you're a mouth breather, now it's not only getting in your gums, it's getting in your teeth too, okay? Number 7, snoring. You're going to notice that mouth breathers are also snorers, okay? What happens is the tongue, which should in its natural position be at the top of the mouth when you're just sitting here, your tongue should rest on the top of the palate of your mouth, the top, okay? But for mouth breathers, what you'll notice is that your tongue is always at the bottom of your jaw or the bottom of your mouth. And when it relaxes on the bottom, it also sits back. And then when it sits back, especially when you sleep, that tongue is going to relax back on the throat, closing down your mouth, okay, making it more difficult to breathe. That's where the snoring comes from. The snoring is like a regurgitation trying to get more air, okay? So snoring, number 7. 8, sleep apnea. It increases your risk for sleep apnea. And sleep apnea not only can raise your blood pressure, but it can increase the risk for cardiovascular disease. All right. Number 9, enlarged tonsils. You'll notice that sometimes, your adenoids will get a little bit enlarged as a result of being a mouth breather as well too. Number 10, fatigue, daytime fatigue, because you're not getting restful sleep. You're not getting that deep sleep when you're snoring like that. You're not able to, you're waking everybody else up. So, it makes sense that you're going to be waking yourself up as well too, okay? And we'll notice that a lot of mouth breathers will wake up throughout the night, but you're not getting restful sleep, which means that they're going to be fatigued throughout the day. And number 11, and the final one, is going to change your facial features. You're going to have more flat facial features, okay? So your face will be much more flatter, okay? Much more puffier chin line. You'll notice that you won't have a chin line, okay? You'll also notice that drooping under the eyes as well too, as a in addition to. All right, so drooping eyes, and you're also, again, like I said before, your jaw will become more narrower, okay? Crowding the teeth as well, too. So those are just some of the symptoms that happen when you mouth breathe. Now, mouth breathing is also associated with ADHD, diabetes, and also childhood sickness as well, too. All right, now what I want to do is give you a little tip on something that can help you. Now, one of the things you can do to practice to get yourself back to, first of all, get the muscles back stronger, is to practice putting your tongue at the top of your mouth, and then take a deep breath through your nose. So practice that. The other thing you could do is mouth tape, okay? Now, listen, this is really important. When you do the mouth tape, I am not talking about putting like a big piece of tape over your mouth. I got an example here. I'm talking about taking something just like this, something small just like this, putting it over your lips. And what you'll notice is I can still talk, okay? You put this over your mouth like this when you go to sleep, and that is it. Now, when you wake up, it may be off. But what it's going to do is keep your mouth closed, so it'll force you to breathe through your nose, okay? So a little bit of mouth tape just like this. Not a full, don't cover your whole mouth. Just little something like this. Try that for a couple nights, see how it helps you. But it's really important to understand, even when you're exercising, make sure you're very conscious about at least breathing in your nose and out your mouth, okay? Hope this video has been helpful. Until the next time, peace and blessings and Godspeed.